We continue now at the top of Daf Kufyud Beis Amud Aleph Meseches Bava Metzia. This is Bava Metzia Daf 112a. The Gemara is now asking, what does Rabbi Yossi Reb Yehuda do with the pasuk of Ve'elav hu nosei es nafsho? Ve'idach, the other Tana, again Rabbi Yossi Reb Yehuda, hahumi boy leilech chidetanya. That pasuk is needed for what was taught in the following brisa. Ve'elav hu nosei es nafsho. Again, that's the pasuk. He's nosei es nafsho, referring to the worker. What does it mean? Mivnei ma'ola zeh bekevesh v'nisla be'ilan u'masar es atzmo lemisa. Why is this person going up the ramp, or he's going up the tree? He's putting himself in a situation of danger where he might die. Lo al secharo, isn't he doing that for his wages? The idea is that the pasuk is explaining why we need to be so precise in terms of paying the wages. And the brisa continues, davar acher, another explanation, ve'elav hu nosei es nafsho. What does it mean when it says ve'elav hu nosei es nafsho? It means kol hakovesh schar sacher, if a person withholds wages from the worker, ki ilu notel nafsho mimenu, it's as if he's taking his soul from him. Rav Huna v'Rav Chisda, there was machlokas Rav Huna and Rav Chisda about this. Chad omar nafsho shel gazlan, one says we are referring to the soul of the gazlan, meaning when it says ve'elav hu nosei es nafsho, we're referring to the soul of the person who's doing the stealing. V'chad omar, the other one says nafsho shel nigzal, it's the soul of the person who's being stolen from. The idea is if you're not paying him, it's as if you are killing the person that you're stealing from. And Rashi explains, v'idach, the other Tana, hahumi boile l'chidetanya, the pasuk is needed for what's taught in the brisa, lahanisho, the idea is that we're punishing the person who's withholding these wages, ki ilu hu notel es nafsho, as if he's taken the person's life. Kidetanya, as the brisa says, umaskana, the brisa goes on in the conclusion to say, kol hakovish sechar sacher, if a person withholds wages, ve'elav hu nosei, again it says ve'elav hu nosei, and the way the brisa understood it, kol atzmo hu moser nafsho olav lalos bekevish gavoa, the person is risking his life, he's going up a high ramp, v'siken be'atzmo lipol, he's putting himself in danger, he might fall, v'lislos be'ilon kisha'ol olav limso gzeisim, he's going up in a tree in order to collect the olives, v'ligdor tamarim, or the dates, u'moser nafsho olav lemisa, so again he's risking his life, shema yipol min hakevish o min ha'ilon, maybe he's going to fall from the ramp, or he'll fall from the tree. Hachi garsin, the proper text is davar acher, another explanation, v'elav hu nosei es nafsho, again nosei es nafsho, pligi baha, Rav Huna v'Rav Chisda, we have a machlokas amoraim here, in terms of exactly what it means. Rav Huna and Rav Chisda argue, but mashma'usa dekra, what is the meaning of the pasuk? Chad amar nafsho shel sachir nenesh olav ki'ilu hargo. One says, we're referring in the pasuk to the soul of the person who's hired, meaning if you withhold the wages, you get punished as if you've killed the person. V'chad amar nafsho shel gazlan, the other opinion says that the pasuk is referring to the soul of the one who's stealing, the one that's not paying. Higid l'cha akosef shegorim misalatzmo, the pasuk is saying that he's causing himself, that he is worthy of death. And the Gemara continues, Man da'amar nafsho shel gazlan, the one who understands the pasuk is referring to the soul of the gazlan, the one who's stealing. T'chsiv, as it's written in the pasuk, this is a pasuk in Mishlei, al tigzal dal ki dalhu, ve'al tedake oni bashar, uchsiv ki Hashem yoriv rivam, v'kaves koveim nafesh. It's referring to stealing from the poor, and it's saying v'kaves koveim nafesh, it's taking the soul of those who spoil, those who are doing the wrong thing. That's referring to the gazlan. Uman da'amar nafsho shel nigzal, and the one who says that we're referring to the soul of the one who is stolen from, T'chsiv, as it's written in the pasuk, also in Mishlei, Kein orchos kol botzea betza es nefesh ba'olav yikach. It's talking about the person who is greedy, the person who's taking from someone else, is taking the nefesh ba'olav, is taking the soul of the owner. That sounds like we're talking about the nigzal. And the Gemara continues, v'idach nami, but the other opinion also, what does he do with this pasuk? Haksiv es nefesh ba'olav yikach, you're taking the soul of the owner. It sounds like we're talking about the nigzal. The Gemara says not necessarily. Ba'olav dahashta could be the current owner, meaning after he's already taken it. We're actually talking about the gazlan. V'idach nam, in the other opinion, what about the pasuk we brought earlier? Haksiv kaves koveim nafesh. It seems to be saying we're taking the soul of the person who did the stealing. And the Gemara again says not necessarily. Matam kamra, could be the way to understand the pasuk is the pasuk is giving the reason. Matam kava es koveim mishum dinatalo nefesh, because the person who stole took a soul, meaning he took a soul of the nigzal. That's why he is being punished. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, Eimasai, when does he transgress? When he withholds wages from a worker, Bisman shetavo, that's only if the worker actually asked for the money, he made a claim, lo tavo, but if the worker never asked for the money, eino over olav, so then there's no transgression. And the Gemara says, Tanu Rabban, and the rabbis taught, Lo solin pu'ulas sochir, it says again, you're not allowed to withhold the wages. Yachol afilu lo tavo. Now, I might think that you violate that even if he never claimed it from you, he never asked for it. Talmud lomar itch, it says, says with you means to say ledaitcha, means by your knowledge, meaning to say that if he never claimed it, if it was with his consent, so to speak, the worker never even asked for the wages, then there's no violation. Yachol afilu ein lo. Now I might think that a person can violate this even if he doesn't have any money. Meaning, let's say a person doesn't pay his worker, but the reason he doesn't pay is because he has nothing. Does he still violate? Talmud lomar itcha. The pasuk says itcha means sheyesh itcha. It means that the money is with you. If you have the money and you don't pay, that's when there's a violation. I might think that the person even violates this. Let's say he sets up an arrangement with the storekeeper or the money changer to take care of the payment. Again, Talmud lomar itcha. The pasuk says itcha v'lo shemcheyu etzel chenvani ve'etzel shulchani. If he makes an arrangement with the storekeeper or the money changer, then there is no violation. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said him cho etzel chenvani ve'etzel shulchani. Eino over again if he transferred the obligation or the payment over to the storekeeper or the money changer. So then the balabayas, he does not transgress if he withholds the wages in that case, because again the responsibility is really upon the storekeeper or the money changer at that point in time. And the Gemara says iboy luhu. They had the following question: chozer o eino chozer? Does he return to him or does he not return to him? And Rashi explains: chozer hasacher etzel balabayas. Is the worker allowed to return to the balabayas? Im lo nasan hachenvani. Let's say the storekeeper doesn't take care of it. The storekeeper doesn't pay him. Do we then say that the Baal Habayis is obligated to pay? Meaning, was this a complete transfer of the obligation over to the Chenvani and the Shulchani, and at this point in time, the worker does not go back to the Baal Habayis at all, or no? Let's say he doesn't get paid by the Chenvani or the Shulchani, he's allowed to go back to the Baal Habayis. And this is a machlokas amoroim. Rav Shesha says, Eino chozer, he doesn't go back to the Baal Habayis. That obligation of the Baal Habayis has been completely transferred. The Rabba says, chozer, no, he does go back to the Baal Habayis if it's not paid by the Chenvani or the Shulchani. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabba says, Meno aminolo, where can I prove to you that he's able to go back to the Baal Habayis? Midakatani eino over olav, because the language of the Mishnah is that if the obligation to pay was transferred, so then the Baal Habayis doesn't transgress if he doesn't pay. But what does that mean he doesn't transgress? Ma'aver hu delover, so there's no transgression. Hamahader hadar, but we could infer that the worker is allowed to return to him, let's say he does not get paid. Rav Shesha says, no, that's not the understanding. My eino over, what does it mean that there's no transgression? It means to say eino betoras over. He's not even within the category to transgress. The obligation has been completely transferred over. Rashi says eino betoras lavor means kalamar einlo olav klum. He has no obligation whatsoever. That's how Rav Shesha understands. She'ayala betoras damim shum averos sachar sacher. You have over here again no transgression because he's not even within the category. There's no obligation whatsoever. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. Bo mi neimer Rav Sheshes. They asked Rav Sheshes the following question. Kablonis, when it comes to kablonis, Rashi explains, kablonis is uman shakibel olav lasos malacha bekach vekach v'lo l'schiras yamim. We're talking about a craftsman, and the idea is that he's getting paid for the job. He's not getting paid for his time. So it's not like he's being hired, let's say, for a number of days. He's just being hired to complete a job, and then he completes the job, and he's supposed to get payment. So when you have that kablonis, the question is, over olav mishum bal talin, oein over mishum bal talin. Is there transgression in terms of withholding the wages there, or maybe there is no transgression? Maybe we say that it only applies to a hired worker who's hired, let's say, for a number of days for his time, but maybe it does not apply to kablonis. And the Gemara explains the question. Uman kona b'shevach kli v'halvahi. On the one hand, we could say that when a craftsman is working, let's say, on a tool or a vessel, and he's improving it in some way, he's doing some kind of job, what's actually happening over there is he's kona b'shevach kli. He becomes the owner of the improvements. He becomes the owner of the enhancements. And essentially what's happening is, it's a halva, it's like a loan. It's not really like a typical situation of a worker being paid for his work. So when he gives the enhanced product back to the original owner, so now he's owed money. It's almost as if he's selling him a product, and so then there would be no Baal Talin, because this would really be like selling a product, not like doing work. Or you could say that a craftsman does not acquire the enhancements of the vessel, and this is just a regular case of a hired worker. Rashi explains, Uman kona b'shevach kli v'zoche b'mashesh bicho. The idea is that the craftsman becomes the owner of the enhancements. Umishum kablanuso yotze lo cheshamach zero lo hareu kemocher lo. And so therefore, what essentially happens is when he returns the item, it's like he's selling him the item. It's kemocher lo shevach shahaya lo b'tocho. He's selling him the enhancements that are within the product. And then it's a halvahi. Then it's considered like a loan. V'lo shem schiras aleh would not be called a schiras, and therefore there is no Baal Talin. Or on the other hand, again, again, you could say that the uman is not kona b'shevach kli, and therefore it is considered just like any other schiras, and there would be Baal Talin. And the Gemara says, Amar Lahu Rav Sheshes says, over, he does indeed transgress. It's considered just like any other worker. The Gemara says, V'atanya, but we learned in a Brisa, Eino over, that he doesn't transgress, exactly against what Rav Sheshes said. And the Gemara says, Hasam, no, over there in that case, when he says he doesn't transgress, it was talking about a very specific situation. Shemcho etzel chenvani v'etzel shalchani. It's talking about when he essentially transferred the obligation to a storekeeper or a money changer, where we said there is no transgression. It has nothing to do with the fact, meaning this Brisa has nothing to do with the fact that we were talking about an uman. It's because the obligation to pay was transferred. And the Gemara continues, name a Messiah, let's say the following support for Rav Sheshes. Again, Rav Sheshes said we treat kablonis like a regular worker, and there is a transgression of Baal Talin. It says, Hanosen taliso le'uman, let's say a person gives his talis to a craftsman, Gomra v'hodio, if he finishes it, he lets him know, Afilu mikan v'yad asara yamim, even from now till 10 days, Eino over misham Baal Talin, there's no transgression of Baal Talin. However, nosna lo bechatzi hayom, but let's say he gives it to him midway through the day, mishashaka olav acham, once the sun sets, over misham Baal Talin, then there is a transgression of Baal Talin in that situation. So it seems to be like Rav Sheshes, there's a transgression. V'yamrit uman kona b'shevach li, if you say that the uman acquires the enhancements of the vessel, amai over, again, why would there be a transgression? That's why it seems to be a support for Rav Sheshes, that there is a transgression. And the Gemara answers, Amar Rav Mari b'reider Rav Kahana, Rav Mari, the son of Rav Kahana, said, Begarda desarbala, we're talking about when one teasels the cloth. Rashi explains, Begarda desarbala pulkir, some have the girsa of plukir, probably refers to plucking, teaseling, essentially pulling out. Belaz, that's the old French. She'ein kan shevach kli. The point over here, the answer is there is no improvement to the cloth. Shem haya menicho kamos shehi, on the contrary, if he would have just left it as it was, haisa miskayem es harbe yoser meata, it actually would have lasted longer than from doing this work. But the Gemara then questions that, even if you're going to say there's no improvement, so why are you doing that? Lamaya have an ahili, why would he give it over to the person just to not have an improvement? It's going to be obviously l'rakuche, obviously there is some kind of improvement. The point is to soften it. Rashi says l'rakuche, shihei rach, you want to make the fabric softer, but hainu shivche, but that is considered to be an improvement. Maybe it's not going to last as long, but it's improved in a certain fashion. Rashi explains, hainu shivche, di'iko denichale b'hachi, some people prefer it like this. Memnesha mechamim yoser, it's warmer. It looks nicer. So that's still considered to be an enhancement. That doesn't answer the question at all. And the Gemara says, Lo no tzrich, it's necessary to agri minei levatushe bitcho uvitcha b'ma'asa. The case actually over here is he's hiring the person to tread upon it. He's paying him 1 ma for every time he treads. And essentially in this situation, it's just like a regular schiras. You're not being paid for a finished product. You're being paid for the work that's being done. Obviously, that's why in such a situation, there is going to be a transgression of Baal Talin if the worker is not paid. Rashi says, the agar levitchi ela liolam lav begarda. We're not talking like we said above about teaseling the cloth. Ela betikon harishon shakorn pulyur. We're talking about the first thing you do, which is called pulyur. Keshavami beis hagardi, when it comes from the weaver. Bochin oso beraglayim besoch klietz b'mayim. You tread upon it with one's feet inside a klietz, inside a wooden vessel with water. V'karka haruya bekach, the proper earth that's fit for that. Mihu lo bekablonas askin. And Rashi says, however, the point over here is it is not a kablonas. You're not being paid for the job. Ela b'schiros, we're talking about being hired to do work. Bein yashbiach uvein lo yashbiach, whether there's improvement or not. Sachar lefi minyan b'tishu, say he's hiring him according to the number of treads. Kach v'kach b'tishos bekach v'kach mos. This many treads is going to be this many mos, and so therefore again it's essentially going to be like schiros, and that's why there is Baal Talin in this case. We will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Kuf Yud Beis Amud Beis.